What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to the Nightmare Success In and Out podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares and set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who survived their own nightmare. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you built up in your own mind. Welcome back, Nightmare Success In and Out listeners. I have got another fascinating guest. I know you guys come here for the good stuff. What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? How do you adapt, survive, overcome? Well, Justin Smith is one of those stories. Fascinating stories. Justin did 12 years, got sentenced to 12 years in prison for running the largest bath salts trafficking ring in Florida. And he'll walk us through that because, you know, what is that? How is it illegal? He's wickedly smart. I was watching one of his earlier podcasts he was on as a guest on Concrete, and it's just he has a way, a knack of finding ways to get things done. Fascinating story. He's incredibly tenacious. He's doing incredible things now today with an app that he's created called Contractor Plus that we'll get into. This is an app for contractors that skyrockets productivity and profitability, which is something that is needed out there for all those contractors who are just kind of winging it, just trying to get by. So Justin Smith, man, welcome in. Thanks for making time.
Brent, thanks for having me, man. It's an honor to be here.
Well, I'll tell you, you had me locked in today. I was doing my workout and had my headphones in, just listening to your story. Take us back a little bit, Justin. As far as you as a kid in Ohio, what was life like for you? Mom, dad, siblings? Were things normal?
Oh, well, so I grew up in a small little rural town called Laurelville, South Central Ohio. Population was like 300. No stop sign, no stop lights.
That
just like
is
a five-way
really small,
stop.
Justin.
Really small, man.
My parents are from Buffalo, Missouri, and I think that's got like 2,500 to 3,000, but 300.
A little bit bigger.
300, man.
Yeah, it was small. It's funny. As a kid, I used to go door to door, and I would sell things out of catalogs to earn points to cash in for prizes like a Nintendo or things like that. So even from a young age, I was, I had that hustler spirit. Always an entrepreneur from birth.
I think that, Justin, I think that happens, doesn't it? Because when you were saying that, I remember I'd drag my little brother out, and we would grab stuff out of my parents' closet and bring it out. And have as people drove by, had little signs that we were selling their stuff. One of the neighbors called and said, "Hey, do you know your boys are selling your stuff out of the driveway?"
Oh no, you didn't get permission.
No.
Oh man, wow.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to have your way about yourself.
I think you've got me beat, man.
The sales gets in your blood, I guess.
That is hilarious. I love it.
So you're a little entrepreneur guy, and what's your school life like? Are you in sports? What are you doing down in this little town?
So I lived in walking distance to the elementary school, Laurelville Elementary. Lived right next to an apple orchard, like processing facility. So our alleys that connected the house were always full of crates of apples.
Wow. And
I remember walking home from school every day. I'd always stop by and for a quarter, I think, they give the kids a slushie. So we'd save our parents would give us a quarter, and we could get an apple cider slushie on the way home from school. It was a nice community, honestly. There was still a sense of community, and I'd imagine there probably still is. Of course, it's changed a lot over the years.
Yeah.
But just a little small town hardware store, a feed store, a couple of lumber mills, and a gas station / grocery store. And that's all there was to it.
That was your world. So as you go along here, Justin, I know you went to college. Where'd you go to college? You went down in Florida, I think.
Yeah. So kind of fast forwarding a lot there, but so I went to college in Florida. I
don't want to fast forward a lot. Tell me what I just missed.
So life growing up, my mother is a contractor, has been my whole life. She's the dude. I have
brains of the organization. Okay.
My mom is just amazing. I love her so much. She has been my inspiration for everything good that has ever come from any business I've done. My mother has been a big part of that motivation.
Love that.
Her work ethic after 3 back surgeries and you know, living a pretty rough life, her work ethic is still impeccable to this very day. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for her. My father worked in a factory. He never really aspired for much. He was a good man, though. He treated my mother with respect and kindness. He was a strict man. My parents were in a gospel bluegrass group called Streams of Praise. So we grew up pretty religious. Around the age of, so I was 12, about 11 or 12, I started like fixing computers. I could take them apart, put them back together. I built my first computer for sale for profit when I was 12 years old, or maybe just turned 13. At 13 years old, I started a dial-up internet service provider. This was in 1998, 1999. If you look at Wayback Machine on archive.org, you can actually type in verta.net and see the website.
How crazy is that?
So at 13 years old, here I am with a dial-up internet service provider with customers, and my phone started ringing off the hook. I was a one-man band. 3 o'clock in the morning, I was getting calls. Help! It's not working. Something's wrong. It's moving too slow. I need help setting up my phone all day.
8th grader.
It was crazy. So I actually had to switch to homeschooling.
Okay.
Went to homeschooling, did an online schooling program. Go at your own pace. Brandon over at Investment Joy was there to witness the whole thing. Funny story. One person that I emailed in that mass marketing was Bill Gates Sr. Not Bill Gates Jr. from Microsoft, but his father, the president and chairman of Planned Parenthood.
Mm-hmm.
And he responded. He asked me how old I was. I guess he could tell based on how I wrote the email. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he was just curious, and he said, "Keep at it. You're going far, kid." I showed my parents. I showed everyone this email from Bill Gates, and I'm like, I can't believe Bill Gates responded to me. But yeah, so about a year, not even a year later, 9 months later, DSL came to the area, even in the rural area. Everyone switched to DSL, and then shortly after cable, and I didn't know what I was doing. So it was my first stab at business, but we didn't lose money.
No.
So not bad.
Not bad at all.
And I've always been into music. And it was an ad for Full Sail University. And they had a business degree. They had a bachelor's in business. So you get your associates in recording arts, you get your bachelor's in music business, and you get your master's, which is only an extra 11 months.
Wow.
You get your master's in entertainment business and law. So the whole thing cost me about $120,000 and it was under 3 years. So I got a master's degree in under 3 years.
That is incredible.
It's more people to get a bachelor's.
There's anything out there like that. That's crazy.
Yeah. So the only reason it works like that, so the only reason Full Sail is able to do that and maintain accreditation is because you actually go to school for 8 hours a day.
Okay.
You have 4 hours of lectures and 4 hours of live labs. So where you're actually in the field doing it. And you have to get an internship as part of the master's program. I got an internship at a record label called 111 Records. The CEO of that company is Brad Vichetti. His name, or he's the front man of the boy band LFO.
Okay.
I like girls that wear Abercrombie and Fitch. I take her if I wish. Yeah. So he signed bands like the Spill Canvas, Devin Limo, who I believe has now passed of cancer. He was one of his bandmates in LFO, actually. I believe I believe Brad's the only remaining member. Both of his bandmates have passed of cancer.
Wow. Okay.
But anyhow, long story short, they responded to my email. They said, "We don't really have any positions available, but we really like you and your ambitions, so let's do it."
Wow,
and
this has become a pattern of yours, Justin. Just one after the other.
Yeah, man. So then before I even had my master's, as soon as I got my bachelor's, I started working on I had some side clients, website clients and stuff. I applied for one job when I was working on my master's, and I was almost through it. I'd been with 111 for like a year, and I applied for one job on Craigslist at a real estate company. And this realtor was top 30, under 30, most brilliant man I've ever met in my entire life. I mean, just wow. And the one job is all I sent him my resume, and he calls me. I think it was on a Friday or Saturday. I was on my way to the beach. I was wearing a cutoff shirt. I'm covered in tattoos. I had a lip ring. I was wearing a bandana. I just looked like a punk kid. And he says, I need you in my office right now for an interview. He said, if you want this job, you'll show up. I was like, listen, man, I'm not presentable for an interview right now. And he said, I don't care. Wow. I don't care. Don't worry about it. I don't care what you look like. I told him what I looked like. He said, I don't care. So I went into the office, and there was a bunch of people in there, and I was really nervous. And he set me down at a computer, and he said, listen, I have a problem with this website, and there's a bug, and I can't figure it out. If you can fix it, you're hired.
Wow. Okay.
Well, problem number one, the website was in .NET, ASP. Not my language.
Not you.
But thankfully, the universe had a plan. God had a plan. I figured it out in like a minute. So very simple problem, fixed it. He hired me on the spot. Within 3 months, he had a side business called A to Z CDs where we were selling through fulfillment by Amazon. Had like 800 products that they handled the fulfillment for us. Amazon Advantage is what it's called. And he had a side business with about 3 months. Those guys running that business just weren't doing a good job. He had like four people running that business, and it could be done by one person. So I looked at all the systems, and I I'm like, look, man, these guys, they're good guys, but
don't need it all. Right.
I can fix this business for you. I can make it more profitable. And he's like, Justin, I'm going to give you permission to fire these people and take it over. But if you mess this up, it's your ass.
Okay.
And I'm like, whew. So the next morning I had our bookkeeper cut them all their last paychecks and gave them their letters of termination and terminated them all. I systemized everything, hired one person to handle fulfillment, trained them on all the processes. I handled the customer service. They handled the fulfillment. It worked out. 6 months later, I was running the entire business, the real estate business, and
At what age were you then, Justin? I mean, this all happened pretty fast.
23 years old. 22,
You're running the
22.
whole show.
Yeah, I was about 22 years old, running the whole show. Scott, actually, our business got to a point where he was able to move out of the city. He moved to Tampa, then he moved to Miami. He was living in a penthouse. He was living the life, and he paid me really well. But and gave me equity. He gave me like 1% of the equity. Yeah. And which, you know what? That's something else I'd like to mention. Yeah. A lot of people get offended by that. Like even instrumental people that are like, they get offended by 1%, but they don't understand math. Like, do you understand 1% of a billion?
Hell of a lot. Exactly.
Big deal. So when people are negotiating for 10%, I have a couple of people on my team right now that's always wanting more. They're like, I deserve more. And you know what? They're doing good. They're doing good. One of them in particular. But it's like, I know I can't afford to give them that much common stock.
Right.
Maybe they could get options on top of the common stock grant I've given them already, but it's just not realistic. And people I think they need to educate themselves a little bit more about how that really works. But long story short, we grew that company. When I joined, they just started the property management division. They were managing maybe a dozen rentals. Over the preceding 5 years, we grew to over 800 properties under management, all single family homes and condominiums.
A lot of properties.
A lot of properties. It was a big deal. And we did it with 2 rental leasing agents and 1 property manager.
So Justin, doing all that, I got to ask you, how in the world did you end up in the bath salt deal?
You know what? Scott was, I won't say his last name out of respect for him, but Scott was definitely the most brilliant man. Like when he walked in the room, he commanded attention. He was brilliant. Yeah. I don't understand like the level of energy and the level of brilliance of this guy was just like, wow. Like having Jeff as a role model early in life.
You've had great mentors. Yeah.
Yeah, having Scott to look up to, like I emulated him and his behavior, the way he wrote his emails, the way he talked to clients, the way he did. I emulated everything he did because I saw the results of it.
Yep.
And, but something happened, and I don't know. I still don't understand it, Brent. I don't understand it. But what I know is after a few years, the business is doing really well. We're really frugal. We have a little warehouse in the ghetto. We're super cheap, and our investors, like they appreciate that. We're running Cat 5 lines under rugs and stuff, like, you know, and it worked. So we didn't need a big fancy penthouse office downtown.
Right.
We didn't need it. We could afford it.
Mm-hmm.
We could afford to buy our name on the side of the building. We almost did it, but why?
Yeah.
So, and you know, that when you're building a brand and building a business, especially in a local area, a local brand, maybe it's worth it. But everything has a cost and everything has a benefit, and you have to weigh those things.
Right.
Is it really worth it? Is that where the money's best allocated right now?
Yep.
So he comes back from Miami. I saw him at that point the last year. I think I saw him 3 times the whole year. Of course, I was up till 2 a.m. emailing him every night.
Yeah.
Running the business. I was he called me VP operations, COO, whatever you want to call it. I was the operations guy. On top of the web developer and the customer service for the other business, everything.
Right.
So, and we launched, prior to that, we'd launched the handyman division, and that grew to our most profitable division. We were subbing out so much work and maintenance and carpet cleaning, and like, it was ridiculous. We made more money off of, once we brought that in-house and hired our own team and got our own fleet of vehicles, we ended up making more money, 3 times more than what we did off of the 10% property management.
And that type of situation.
You control everything.
You want. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You can control everything. You handle all the scheduling. You know, it's all predictable at that point.
Right.
So it's a lot less stressful.
Exactly.
Every time something changes, you don't have to call 5 different people. It's all handled.
Right.
So it made a lot of sense to bring those processes internal, and it made us more profitable. Well, he comes back to Orlando out of nowhere, and he sits down. I had a lazy boy recliner in my office, and he sits down in the recliner next to my workstation. And he said, "Hey, Justin, let's go for a drive." I said, "Okay." And we're driving downtown, and we go by this building, and this building was 37 North Orange Avenue, the old Angebuilt Hotel. Walt Disney and Henry Ford had actually stayed there. And he said, "You like this building?" I said, "Yeah, why?" And I'll tell you something interesting about this. It's really weird. I said, "Yeah, why?" And he said, "Because that's where your new office is. For now, it's just you and me. We're on the 7th floor, but I want you to negotiate a lease on the top 2 floors. We want the top 2 floors, the 10th and 11th floor, and we build it out. We'll sign a 10-year lease, do whatever we have to do. And over the next 2 to 3 months, we'll rehab that and build it. We're gonna move our whole team there except for the handyman division." I said, "Scott, how much is this going to cost?" And he said, "Don't worry about it. We're making the money." And so we did that. That's what we did. But what's interesting about that, I said something was interesting about that. Me and Spencer LeClaire, one of our rental leasing agents, was downtown. We'd go out for a drink, wind down Wednesday and stuff after work, meet the ladies. So we were out and walking by the building, and we stopped and looked in the lobby of this old fancy. Everything was like like it looked gold, like looked very fancy and historic. And I said, "Man, wouldn't it be cool if we had an office in this building?" And we were like, he said, "Yeah." We both agreed. Not long after that, Scott arranged an office in that same building. It was unbelievable. I was kind of shocked. But so we built that out. We moved our whole business into that building. Started doing some crazy stuff though. Like Scott was just not the shops. First, I had a nice office, floor to ceiling glass windows. 3 months into that move, he moves me to the ground floor with the rest of the team. He's like, "You're the operations guy. You need to be on the ground with everyone else." My ego is like, "No, this can't happen." But I let it. I said, "You know what? If it's in the best interest of the business, I'll do it."
Yeah.
So I did it, and then
it seemed a little bit off from what you were used to with him.
Man, the way I see it, if it wasn't for me, we would have never been like here's the thing, like what we're owed or what we deserve or what we think we deserve and what life has in store for us aren't always in alignment.
True.
And I think practicing acceptance over what we can't control and just making the best, playing our cards the best we can.
Yeah.
Like, we were dealt those cards. We can't change those cards, man.
Right.
So we just got to play them to the best of our ability. We know the odds. If you're smart, you know the odds. Play them right, man, and keep your hand close. But hindsight's 20/20. Yeah, some lessons, the best lessons I've learned the hard way. So Scott came in one morning. Well, he came in one morning, and an incident happened where a bag of Adderall fell out of his suit jacket on someone's desk. It wasn't mine, and there was a rumor mill. Everyone was talking about it. They brought it to me, like, Justin, something's wrong with Scott. You got to help him. So I didn't know what to do. So I talked to him about it. He denied it, lied to me. And so he was basically working so much that he was using Adderall, not as its intended use. He was misusing it.
Yeah.
And so, but it was hurting him. Like, it was causing him to act in a way like, you may be able to stay up longer, and you may be able to get more work done.
Right.
But the quality of your work, like your soul, like what goes, the reason people believe in you, and the reason people are giving us their business is because they know it's in good hands.
Right.
And it started to weaken the fabric of his integrity and his personality. So, long story short, one morning I come in early. I'm usually the first one there, and there's a Brian's computer. He's the fulfillment guy for A to Z CDs. The whole top floor around one of the corners, one of the wings, was for A to Z CDs. And there was one computer there, the ship station and everything, and it was glaring. And I'm talking like 6 o'clock in the morning, man. It was early. So I walk over there, and there's all these newspaper cutouts on the table, and it's all like Wiccan witchcraft stuff.
Oh, wow.
And I'm thinking, what? And I look at the computer, and there was an email that it just went out to all of our biggest investors.
So going back, Justin, you get let go that day. You've been very successful. The guy flipped out on you. What are you thinking?
Well, I didn't get a severance.
So it was just flat out done.
So I got fired. I started looking for, I did some freelance work on, I believe it's called Upwork now. At the time it was, what did it used to be called?
But I'm familiar with Upwork. I don't know, but I know what Upwork is.
Yeah, so it used to be called something else. They acquired that other company. So I started taking jobs on there. I got some video production gigs. I got some SEO gigs. I had a little side project with my friend in India, Roshan. We had started, I don't know if you remember Dollar Shave Club.
Oh, yeah.
$1 billion acquisition.
Yeah.
So they had a video that went viral. So there was a few things that happened, but basically I had some savings. I was making good money.
Right.
And I had a little bit of savings at least. And I got some video production and web development clients. Okay. I got two. I got a vein doctor out of Punta Gorda. And I believe that contract paid $65,000. And I subbed out a lot of the video work for like 10 grand. So I might have walked away after taxes with like 25K. And then I got a life coach, and we did some website and video production work for them. Mm-hmm. And that carried me for a while, but I knew that wasn't going to be it. Well, I had a colleague, a friend who owned some smoke shops.
Okay.
And so this guy the top selling product in all of his stores was spice. Mm. They sold more volume in spice, more revenue was generated from selling spice than any other product, than all the other products combined.
In his smoke shop.
Oh, in all of his locations. He had multiple locations. Yeah. So, and then, everyone calls it K2 because that was the brand that got most established.
Which K2, in prisons was just an absolute nightmare. I'm sure it still is, but I saw some really
that's the thing, though.
shit.
They call it K2 in prison, but it's not actually K2. K2 was a brand. It was a company, a legal company, a legally registered company, a C corporation. And they were importing this stuff legally. They were not controlled substances.
Right.
They were controlled. It was some gray area. There is a lot of people don't know this, and I didn't know this at the time. There's what's called the Federal Analog Act. The Federal Analog Act states that any substance that produces a similar or like mind-altering effect, they can charge you with the nearest related substance.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, they use the marijuana equivalency table, and they come up with this it's a magical formula that determines how long you're supposed to do in prison. Well, so I figured out what the chemical was. At the time, the chemical K2, the company K2 and Mr. Nice Guy and all the big distributors, all the big manufacturers, all they're doing is they're taking loose leaf Damiana and if I'm saying that right, and marshmallow, two different kinds of herbs that are legal, totally legal, and smokable. It won't like kill your lungs or nothing. They don't taste great, and they buy it in bulk. They buy like truckloads of this stuff, and then they would basically take 1 gram of pure chem, or at the time it was called JWH-18, and that kept changing, and we'll explain that in a second. But so it kept changing to skirt the law. So, but basically, they were putting this. So you turn 1 gram of pure chem, JWH-18, and you spray that on approximately 10 grams of loose leaf. And then you sell these this loose leaf by the gram, and the retail value is $25, $20 to $25.
Okay.
So you're turning 1 gram. Now a kilogram of JWH-18 was $1,500, and when you buy 100 of them, you can get it to $1,200. So that's what we did. We started. I think the first time I bought 5 kilos. And no, I take that back. I bought 3 kilos. I bought 3 kilos the first time. I remember that first shipment. I was so nervous when it came to the door. They required a signature. I was terrified. Had it shipped right to my house.
What is that in weight?
3 kilograms?
Yeah.
So 3,000 grams.
What is it?
3,000 grams.
3,000 grams.
So a kilogram is 1,000 grams.
Got it.
It's like 1,006 technically, but it's 1,000.
Yeah.
1,000 grams. So, so that, 1 kilogram turns into 10,000 retail ready products.
Wow.
So and they're selling it on the shelves at at least $20 a pack.
So huge margins.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So 10,000 times $20.
Well, and the interesting thing too, Justin, at this time, I mean, that's not an illegal product, and you're just figuring out how to get it, distribute it, and probably lowball it to enter the market.
Well, yeah, I was only getting paid $1.
Yeah.
Okay, $1 a gram. So for finished product. So if we finished the product and sold
sell it for
let them sell it $1 a gram. But 1 gram turns into 10 grams of finished product. So I'm basically turning $1,500 into 10,000.
Right.
So it was still good money. Those margins are ridiculous.
Sure.
So now that's not what the DEA arrested me for though. And so the stores, distributors, we all got notified from the FDA saying, it is believed that people are ingesting the substance and misusing it as a drug. Okay. And it's causing intoxication and could potentially, it's not tested, so it could potentially cause life-threatening or like they made it sound like really dangerous.
Die. Right.
Let me tell you something though. In the early days, the pure chem that would go on this chemical, I tried it. I'm not into drugs. I don't even like pot, but I tried it just to understand what it was. And we didn't know what we were doing. So we just took the pure chemical and put it in a bowl and took a hit of it. And I felt like I smoked weed. Yeah. It just felt like weed.
Synthetic weed.
That's what it, because the cannabinoids, because before they had to keep altering it. Yeah. Initially they nailed it. It was a weed-like high. It just didn't last as long.
Right.
Like weed might keep you high for a couple hours or an hour, however long, but this stuff would probably keep you high for 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
Where are you buying this stuff from, Justin?
From China.
Getting it from China.
So I'm getting it from a company called Kanzotech. I did some research, and I've always suspected that it was a honeypot. For those who don't know what a honeypot is, it's basically when the government runs a sting operation. They set up a business on foreign soil, and they distribute drugs. A lot of times alongside with like the CIA does this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they'll do it alongside with drug cartels and mafia and criminal organizations in other countries. They'll even give them free reign in through the U.S. just so they can knock off. They don't want to cut the head off the snake. They keep cutting. They keep cutting down the little guy,
right?
Because they've created a pipeline to prison.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my belief, but if you look at the media, I went to entertainment business school,
mm-hmm.
and I know that ASCAP and BMI writes 90% of the music that hits the radio, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
So all this rap music that's talking about, it's demoralizing women, and it's talking about using drugs, and it's talking about women are hoes, and all this nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff, that filth, is coming by design by the people that own the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
So they're creating this pipeline to prison, and then they create the solution to the problem they created.
Right.
The solution is more prisons.
Right.
So from Kennedy forward, the Clinton administration, boom. I mean, even it's been crazy. Nixon, 1969, 1970, when they waged a war on drugs, instated the DEA. If you look before that, drugs were criminalized, were basically a taxable event. It was handled with a tax stamp.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't going to put you in cuffs and throw you in prison for it. If we look at prohibition and the effects of prohibition, you go all the way back to alcohol prohibition, or the first prohibition was opium, because we brought I read that book, Strangers from Another Shore. That's a great read, by the way, about how we mistreated Asian people, people that came from China, we went over there, ran ads in the newspapers, brought them over here, promised them $1 a day, which was 10 times more than they were making, or more than that. And they thought, well, I'll be able to send money home to my family. I'll be able to live a good quality of life, and I'll be able to return to my family wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, of course I'm going to. But then they get over here and the cost of living's so high, and the work they're doing is backbreaking. They're manually building our railroads, and they're mining they're mining all of our tunnels and for our roads and our rail system. They're doing all the backbreaking work that's above Americans.
Right.
Americans are too good for that. We're not going to do that.
It still hasn't changed.
So it still hasn't changed. Right. So those guys got hooked on opium.
Yeah. So I was going to bring you back to where you start getting this from China, and I'm sure the way that you think is, I got to get more of this in. So you probably figured out some way to get more in. And
once I turned 1,000 into 10,000.
Yeah. Once you turn 1,000 into 10,000.
I want to turn 10,000.
How long did it take for you, Justin, to get to a point where you were making a lot of money?
Immediately. So about within a couple of weeks after placing the first order, I placed an order of 10 kilos. And then shortly after I was introduced. Of course, they kept changing the chemical. We'd have to liquidate everything quickly. It was like a race to try to sell it. It was crazy, but we would communicate like when things were going to get scheduled,
mm-hmm.
and then they would just move it like one carbon molecule to the left or right or whatever, change it and call it something else.
Mm.
Chemically, it's something else, so they can't say it's the same thing. Very similar, but not the same.
Interesting.
So, but then we started dealing with synthetic molly, and that's what I got indicted for. So they sold them in the stores just like the spice,
mm-hmm.
just like the K2. They sold it in a little foil bag with a smile face on it that said Happy Time, bonsai tree fertilizer, whatever,
mm-hmm.
and not for human consumption was stamped on the bag. 2 little red pills in it, $25, and it contained between 100 and 200 milligrams, about 100 milligrams per pill, but 100 milligrams of a substance called methylone, or VK-MDMA, which was an analog. That wasn't scheduled either. So, and then that became, over the years, it's changed. I don't know, it's probably changed. I don't even know what it is today, but I'm sure they're still producing the crap.
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, that's where the real money was, because it was a little bit more per kilo. It was like $17.50 per key, but we would end up, I could just wholesale the kilo to the people manufacturing this stuff at $10,000 a piece, and they'd buy 100 at a time. I couldn't get 100 at a time. So what I ended up having to do is go and getting these little Spanish bodegas, these little places that wouldn't require lease agreements and they would just let me pay them 6 months rent in cash up front. And then I'd have stuff delivered to these places until there's a seizure in customs. Mm-hmm. If a package gets held up in customs, then, or if the delay is unusual, like if it's more than 4 days or 3 days. So the first step is you familiarize yourself with the mail delivery guy. Mm-hmm. You make sure you know it's the same guy. Test it, order books, order some things, and make sure you know who your delivery guy is. Mm-hmm. So when it's not that person, if they ask you to sign, the second step is waive the signature requirement. Mm-hmm. If they ask you to sign, sometimes on international packages, they'll still ask you to sign even when you've waived the requirement. Right. If they ask you to sign, make a judgment call. If it's your normal delivery guy, probably fine. Of course, be looking down the road, have lookouts, have people make sure you're safe. So that's the first step. If you have a package that we would never ship more than 10 kilos in a box.
But even if this wasn't scheduled as a drug, and I'm sure you're probably asking your attorney, am I all right? What's he saying?
He's saying it's a gray area, and that these things quickly become scheduled.
Okay.
And it's frowned upon heavily, and be careful. Okay. He advised me not to do it.
Okay.
So my attorney said, don't do it.
And what are you making a month now selling this stuff?
Too much.
Too much.
Too
much to where it's scary that you're thinking, I don't know what am I going to do?
More than I know what to do with. So I convinced myself that I would save up $3 million. Okay. And once I had the $3 million liquid, I would fund all the businesses my marketing agency, the recording studio. So what I started doing was in parallel, as this money was coming in, instead of saving it, mm-hmm. I started building businesses. I got an office building. I put a recording studio in there. I bought over $1 million worth of gear for that studio. Mm-hmm. We wanted the best studio in town.
Yeah, it's smart.
Started building other businesses, but I wasn't thinking like, well, I'm going to have to answer where all this stuff came from. Now, all the material stuff, like you buy the consoles and an $80,000 SSL console, like you don't have to answer for that stuff because you paid cash for it.
Right.
But as long as the person you bought it from is cool with that.
Right.
But you're going to raise some eyebrows spending money like that.
Yeah.
So I got to a point where I told myself that, but what really happened, where it all went south. Well, first of all, I should have never done any of it. Mm. And I know that now because I'm smart. I'm capable of building websites and getting clients, but I didn't believe in myself, and I was afraid of hearing no. I was afraid of rejection, mm-hmm. and that was rooted from earlier in life.
Yeah,
like when I was a kid, I got made fun of as a kid. Like I said, I had a hard time like socializing with other people. So,
but you had a good run business wise. I mean, from
business wise, yeah. Because I poured everything. When other kids are out playing and doing so, I'm working on computers and I'm learning. So that made me who I am. Mm-hmm. So. Long story short, China's schedule works different than America's. We have an emergency schedule. Once they realize something's hurting people or something could hurt people, mm-hmm. Or could I say hurt people? If you use a scientific dose mm-hmm. to get a mind altering effect, there is such thing as a safe mind altering effect. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, doctors wouldn't prescribe medication.
Sure,
you know what I mean. So there's a way to enjoy MDMA. There's a way to enjoy marijuana. Mm-hmm. And there's also a way to, maybe not with marijuana, but with other drugs, there's also a way to hurt yourself and take too much and have a heart attack or a stroke. Mm-hmm. So, but if you're drinking water and you're being responsible and you do the research and you weigh out a safe dose, a dosage that's deemed safe by the community, mm-hmm. then nothing bad's going to happen to you. But the problem is not everyone's smart like that. Not everybody does that.
Everybody's wanting to push the limit.
Yeah. They take it and they feel good, or they take it and 45 minutes later they don't feel enough, so they take more. Mm-hmm. And then 30 minutes later they feel good, but they want to feel even better, so they take more. Mm-hmm. And then they're not drinking water. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm talking too much. But they're not drinking water and hydrating their body. Well, now they die.
Yeah.
So yes, it can be dangerous. And that's the thing. That's when you have a doctor that prescribes something, they educate you on the proper dose. They tell you how much to take and when to take it with food and water. And, mm-hmm. And that's why there's licenses. And that's why there's there's a system in place to protect people or protect the profits of the medical monopoly. You decide, but whatever. So I digress. But long story short, what sealed my fate was China's schedule is once a year. January 1st, they update their schedule. They don't do it in the middle of the year. They don't worry about they don't care what American
Sure.
consumers putting in their bodies.
Right.
They probably like the idea of messing us up.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's not fair to China. I have some friends in China. They don't wish us ill will.
I don't think so.
So like if the conservative mindset here in America is like China's trying to poison us. They're putting poison in our drywall and our dog food.
No,
man.
And Justin, I had we imported over 5,000 caskets a year from China, and I had good relations with the people that we did business with. So, they
genuinely care about you, right? I mean, that's what I'm saying. I've never witnessed anything like So I think the conservative mindset of China, I think it's the doom and gloom media that's created that.
Yeah.
And I think it's not real.
No,
that's not reality.
I mean, we're in a bad position right now because of that narrative. And, hopefully it pulls itself back from the cliff on both sides because, both countries could cause a lot of harm to each other.
It's so sad. It's so sad because, you know what? I think we're at this point in human evolution where we've evolved to a point where as human beings, all of our differences aside, religion, economic status, socioeconomic status, geography, location, I think these things we're starting to realize as like a species that we're all co-inhabitants of the earth.
Sure.
And we need to stop thinking about these invisible lines that we call borders and these flags that divide us and these religions that divide us. And instead, let's just be human beings and let's look out for one another. I don't care if you're from China or if you're from India or if you're from Ecuador. I don't care. You're my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to treat you like you're my brother or you're my sister, regardless of your conditions or your environment or your geography.
Yeah, and you would think that we were getting there in the 21st century, but you've got Russia that's invading Ukraine is something that you would see probably what you thought you'd see in the 40s. So it's
insane.
It's insane.
Ukraine, Russia, please,
stop.
Man, like knock it off, knock it the fuck off.
Exactly.
It's time, dude. It's time for us to do something about this, but it's not going to change on its own, and you can't change it from inside the system.
I agree.
You can't become a politician and change this. Ron Paul tried that. He said, "I tried. It doesn't
didn't
work."
Exactly,
guys. It's a mindset. It's the belief.
Yeah.
It's a belief that changes everything. If we all can get aligned on this belief, then the world will change in our favor in this direction.
That's a big step, but I mean, we need to start walking that way for sure. So anyway, Justin, I want to get back to when your nightmare happened. Like, how did it happen? What was going on before it happened?
China had to liquidate January. It was in December. They had I don't know, maybe 300 kilos roughly. I don't know. 200, 300. They had what ended up being was like 284 kilos that was remaining in their inventory. And I said, well, just send it to me on consignment. I'll pay you within a week. And I gave them, I think, $100,000 up front or something. It was whatever. So, and I said, I can take 100 of them off of your hands. Now, here's the thing. I communicated with PGP, which is pretty good privacy. It's encrypted. Mm-hmm. So that means all of my emails were encrypted back and forth. And that's why that goes back to me saying I believe Kanzotech may have been a honeypot because the only way to read those emails is if you have both of our private keys. Mm. And the only way they got my private key was by seizing my laptop. How did they get their private key? Mm-hmm. Interpol didn't give it to them. Mm-hmm. Interpol wasn't even on to them. They were still in business 4 years into my sentence. So it really, really, really makes me question that. I don't see any other possibility. It's simple math. But regardless of that, so they send this large shipment. I broke it into 10 kilograms per box. I think some we went a little extra just because we had so much. And I sent it to like 20 different addresses. And about a dozen of them I controlled. The other people didn't even know who I was. Mm-hmm. It was someone that procured them, like college students, just, hey, can I have something? They just told them, like, hey, I'm going to be out of town. Can I have something, a package in there? They didn't ask anything.
Mm-hmm.
So they see what they seized. A lot of it came through. A lot of it they didn't catch in customs, but what they seized was 284 kilos in the mail. And they were all, the majority of it was all going to addresses that they already knew I controlled. They'd been watching me for a year and I didn't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
So they exercised a raid on all of my properties simultaneously. They raided the recording studio. They raided my house early in the morning. I wasn't even awake yet. Kicked the door in. Smoke filled the air. People came in. They put a military boot on the side of my head. Held me to the ground. Zip tied my hands. I'm naked. Did the same, it was just insane.
Anybody else in your place when that happened?
Yeah, me and my girlfriend at the time.
Wow.
So
what's going through your mind?
She had to go through that. It was so embarrassing, so humiliating.
What were you thinking, Justin? Is that obviously there's got to be a jolt. You're dead. You're dead asleep.
Man,
and
I knew what I was doing was wrong, Brent.
Yeah,
I knew what I was doing was wrong. But I remember I was of all places, I was sitting on the toilet like a month before that.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that guilt, that shame that I talked about earlier. I felt that. That's our moral compass, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you listen to it, it will guide you right. But it's hard. Temptation it's hard. The temptation of money is very, very, very hard.
Mm-hmm.
You think the temptation of drugs is hard. The temptation of money is insane.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt that, though. It was like God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, was showing me the way, and I suppressed it.
Mm-hmm.
For like a few hours. I felt like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm done. And then the next day, it's like, well, business as usual. I got to make money.
Right.
So when that happened, anyhow, the DEA had that evidence. They had that email where I said I can handle 100 of them at least.
Yeah.
It was encrypted. I don't know how they had it, but
well,
my lawyer didn't know.
The crazy thing about the feds is they can have everything. Anything you've ever written, anything you've ever sent as an email, anything you've ever done on social media.
But not if it's encrypted.
I know, but I'm just saying it amazes me what is available and how they get to things that you're not supposed to think that they could ever get to. It blows.
Well, Title III gives them access to that stuff.
Sure.
So if they have enough evidence to believe you're doing something illegal, they conjure a grand jury, and the grand jury decides whether or not they have enough reasoning, or but beyond a reasonable suspicion that you're guilty. Then the judge or magistrate grants them a Title III warrant. That Title III, they don't have to go kick in your door right away. They can put trackers on your cars. They can set and watch you from binoculars. They can take pictures from helicopters.
Mm-hmm.
They spend millions of dollars tracking felons before to build a case.
Right.
They listen to all your phone conversations if they've got them.
Mm-hmm.
They start watching all your emails.
Mm-hmm.
They read all your chats.
Mm-hmm.
They look at your browsing history.
Yeah.
They know what kind of porn you like.
Yeah.
They know everything.
Yeah.
And then once they wait for that big moment, so like 5 kilos, 10 kilos, like, okay, 10 kilos, no, we're only going to be able to give them 3 and stuff. And we're going to give them 2 years for that. Like, no, that's what they see that email. I'll take 100.
Mm-hmm.
Bam. It's all over. That's all they needed was that email for a conspiracy charge. I didn't even need possession of the substance.
Right.
You don't even need to have it. You don't even need to be caught with it.
Mm-hmm.
All they need is that email saying that you wanted it.
Yeah. There's a lot of people walking around in the federal yards in conspiracy.
I agree.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There are. Listen, though, I knew what I was doing was wrong.
Yeah.
All right. And
walk me through.
It wasn't a mistake.
Even though you knew what was going on was wrong, they bust down your door, Justin. They take you probably in the most embarrassing way. There's probably people all over the place in front of your place.
They clothed me. They actually clothed me first.
Okay.
So they clothed me.
You get walked out.
I asked them to set out some food and water for my dog.
Yeah.
They did that.
Okay.
They actually did that. but they destroyed the house. They kicked in all the interior doors. They busted some like cabinet doors.
Mm-hmm.
They destroyed my home, but I mean, it is what it is. I knew I was playing with fire.
Mm-hmm.
It's stupid it would be a lie to say that I knew that I didn't think that there would be any repercussions for my actions. I knew there very well could be.
Did you get arrested and released on bail, or did they take you in and that was it?
Once I was in jail, I was in jail.
That's
but which actually helped shorten the sentence.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't shorten it. It just starts the clock early.
Mm-hmm.
So remanded into custody. Did 7 months before
in the
before
county jail.
In a county jail.
Wow.
It was supposed to be 4 months, but they were waiting on another case out of Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some other case that was of some significance with a related substance,
mm-hmm.
and they were waiting on the DEA toxicology lab. The judge didn't want to sentence me until they knew that stuff. Well, that ended up, it was a different substance. It was like Utilone or something. It wasn't even the same thing I had.
But the thing that you had, though, Justin, was relatable to the same effects you could have if you took ecstasy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah. So what? So you get lined up here. You get an attorney.
Yep.
Walk us through what's going on. Like,
so hired a private attorney.
Yeah.
And the attorney said, "Listen, don't agree to any. They want you to admit to what you've done. It's called a proffer.
Mm-hmm.
They want you to come in and proffer. They want you to tell them what you've done, and they want you to, tell them who was involved, and they want you to tell them everything from top to bottom. And if you're willing to do that, they're willing to cut you a deal."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Well, what would that entail?" And he said, "It could entail, it just depends on what they know about your operation." Yeah. He said, "I don't know that yet." And I said, "Well, figure that out." Mm-hmm. So he brought me the next meeting. I think it was a few days later. He brings me some evidence that they had against me. And it was those emails. And he said, "Justin, I'm the 5th best trial lawyer, according to AVO or whatever, in the state of Florida. And I like you, but you didn't make a mistake. You made a series of bad decisions. Mm-hmm. You knew what you were doing. And they know that, and they have evidence. They have too much evidence against you. And if we go to trial, although trial is not truly about guilt, it's not truly about it's really not. It's a game. First you have voir dire, jury selection, you eliminate people you think could be against you, and it's all in the card. So, but even though it's not really about guilt, like the guilty people walk free from trial. Mm-hmm. That does happen. Sure. And non-guilty people get convicted at trial. Right. I know a couple guys that are definitely not guilty that are in prison right now.
Yeah.
And so he said, if you go to trial, this evidence here alone, it's going to be very hard. Even if the jury feels bad for you, it's going to be very hard for it. The odds are just not in your favor, man. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you as your lawyer, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what I would do if I was in your shoes. I would accept as fast as I possibly can the reality that the next decade or better, maybe 5 years, if you tell them, if you admit what you did, you tell them how you did it, tell them who you ordered it from. If you admit it and you say you're guilty, you might get 5 years in prison. I said, how likely is that outcome? He said, it's pretty likely. But he said, I can't guarantee anything though. They can give you up to 20. Mm. So,
which if you're going to trial, you're looking at hundreds of years because they stack all the charges. So,
yeah, but they can't stack it on something that's not scheduled.
Oh, I didn't know that.
On an analog, the max is 20 years.
Okay, that's new news to me.
Yeah. So anyhow, long story short, I talked to my family. I talked to everyone, and we decided I'm just going to plead guilty, and I'm going to admit what I did was wrong. Did your family know anything
about this before it ever happened?
I kept everything quiet.
So you were two lives. You were living that life and regular life.
Yeah, I kept everything pretty quiet. There were a couple people.
What was the time? What was the time period, Justin? Like from you starting that business to when you got kicked in the door?
They kicked my door in 2014, early January 13th, I believe, 2014. So the time when I started would have been, I lost my job in 2012. So just shy of 2 years, maybe.
2 years of that. Okay.
Yeah. About 2 years.
Yeah.
So they, I came to terms with it, and I was sentenced to 151 months. The judge, and it's funny, Lee Reed, Scott's father, who owns South Tampa Development, he came and spoke as a character witness, and he pleaded to the judge like I know what Justin did was bad.
That don't know the months of when we talk about this in months is how they sentence you is 120 months is 10 years. So you were sentenced over 10 years.
Yes, exactly. Well, Lee Reed served in the Naval Reserve the same years my judge did. And I had the same judge that sentenced Lou Pearlman.
Okay.
So very strict, but very by the book. So, he said he thanked Lee. They both went to Yale. They both served in the Naval Reserves. I thought I was close enough to his inner circle that it would have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
He thanked Lee Reed for coming to the meeting, but he's coming to the sentencing hearing. But he said, Lee, unfortunately, the guidelines call for 151 months, and that's exactly what he's going to get. Abandonment custody. So my heart dropped. Well, the judge asked me if I had anything I wanted to say, and I said, yeah, I do. My lawyer's like, no, don't. He can increase your sentence. Don't say anything. I said, no, I want to say something. And I got a little teary-eyed, and I said, listen. I said, I know what I did was wrong. I know I'm going to have to pay the price.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not a reflection of who I really am.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to me that everyone in this room knows that.
Mm.
And he said, Justin, regardless of who you are, what you did speaks volumes to your character. You're going to prison, man.
Mm.
So I went to prison, and prison wasn't so bad. Prison wasn't great. I mean, we're without our families.
Mm.
Our families pay the biggest price, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it gave me an opportunity. I feel like it's what I needed, man. Like at that point in my life, I needed a timeout. I needed to like recalibrate and like come to my senses and come back to my core.
Mm-hmm.
and educate myself. It gave me an opportunity to read. I read over 500 books.
Yeah, I read a book a week.
Yeah, I read more than a book. Like there was a point when they threw me in the hole under suspicion of having a cell phone.
Okay.
And they left me in the hole for 4 months. So
that's
from August 15th, to December 15th, because they couldn't find the phone.
Okay.
And SIS came and asked me, "Where's the phone at?" You're going to tell?
SIS is the investigative unit inside the prison. They are the police of the prison, basically.
Right. Exactly. So they said, "Tell us where the phone's at. Take the charge, or you're both going to get a shot." Well, we both knew. My cellie was the head orderly, and he was a good guy, and he's like, dude, like you got to take the fall here, man. You got to take this charge. Mm-hmm. I was like, man, I'm getting ready to go to a camp.
Yeah.
I'm not falling on nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not admitting to anything. You're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, so you're going to let me sit in the hole? I was like, did you ever use the phone?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever used it? Yeah. Okay, then sit in the hole. We'll make it. We'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
We listened to Coast every night. We read all the time. Mm-hmm. I was crushing them books, man, knocking them down. So December 15th came. They couldn't give me a phone shot. They came, knocked on the door, and said, "Smith, need your thumbprint. You're going to Pensacola." I said, "What?" He said, "You're leaving on a Greyhound in the morning."
That's where my dad was, in Pensacola.
Really? When was your dad there?
Well, he went to Marion first. He had a 10-year sentence. So he got out. Let's see. Dad got out at the beginning of COVID, March 17, 2020. So he would have been there probably after you, because I think he went to Pensacola like in 2019, probably. 2019.
Okay.
He went there for RDAP from Marion.
He went in 2019.
I believe so.
Yeah, he would have been there after me. I was at Big Sandy
Okay.
by then.
All right.
But so we did RDAP at the same place, though.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
I did it under Dr. Profit.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. The prison system has a lot of growing to, like, if they really want to care about, if they really cared about reentry and public safety and giving people like a solid foundation to walk on when they get out, so that they don't reoffend and come back, then they would do a whole lot more in the way of reentry. And I feel like the Trump administration, or at least Jared Kushner, cared a lot but his
dad went to prison, for 2 years.
But so bureaucracy gets in the way. They pass these laws and then bureaucracy gets in the way and it doesn't get implemented. The BOP doesn't take it seriously. They don't get the budget or they can't allocate the funds. So it's law now, but they're not obeying the law.
They're not interested.
Throw them in prison for breaking the law then.
Right.
They're not interested. They don't care about our rehabilitation or don't care about our reentry.
No, it's about punishment. And going back where I think you were going is RDAP really does try to create, it's rational thinking, cognitive behavioral.
I'm a believer, man.
So
I'm a believer.
Yeah, I think that actually that program should probably be in the high schools. I mean, there's nothing wrong.
Even children's books. There's CBT based children's books.
Yeah.
And like if I'm ever fortunate enough to have children, I will definitely implement that at a very young age. It's all it is, and it's frowned upon in prison because it's like, oh, they're snitching on each other, Come on, man. No, we're holding each other accountable.
Yeah.
All right. Is that telling the community what someone else did? Sometimes, yes. But my rule, how I handle that, you're supposed to confront and level with someone assertively and talk to them. If I confronted and leveled with you, and if I confronted you and leveled with you and you didn't like throw up a fight or get nasty with me and you talked to me like a man and we were able to process that and work that out together, I wouldn't take it to the community.
Right.
I wouldn't put you on the docket because I don't think that's any of the community's business. We already handled that as men. And that's how the program really should be.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be seen as some snitch squad. Now, on the flip side, if I confront you rationally and reasonably, assertively, and you get nasty with me and you're not receptive to it, I'm going to pull you up.
Right.
I'm going to pull you up. You can call me a snitch if you want. I'm pulling you up.
Yeah.
Because that's how the program was designed, and that's the only way. You're just going to have to learn the hard way, brother. So, but the program helped me tremendously. It helped me realize before RDAP, something would happen. I would feel emotions, all this crazy stuff about what happened, and then I would take action because of it, and it was all on autopilot.
Yeah.
Like I was just doing this stuff without evaluating the quality of my cognition, my thinking. And all it really does is it breaks down those thinking patterns and helps you build more healthy patterns.
That's what
it's healthy for relationships.
That's the program. Yeah. You recognize your thinking patterns and your behavioral patterns, and then you react the way that you should react instead of a rapid response.
You can kind of visualize the outcome, what the outcome would be had you stopped and thought about it before you acted.
Yep.
I believe there's a book to be written about CBT-based leadership in businesses. Maybe I'll write that book. I don't know.
Maybe so.
But, yeah.
Why not?
Yeah, I think that it can definitely have an impact. We actually implemented it in our Friday morning. We have an NCAP meeting every Friday.
Yeah.
And we've implemented bits and pieces of the morning meeting from RDAP in our company meeting.
You have them stand up and yell their number?
No, we don't. So we don't recite. It's not like cultish. We don't recite a pledge or nothing. Maybe that's the next.
Maybe that's the next step. Once they really
we talk about our feelings.
Yeah.
We talk about what we did right, what we accomplished, what we could have done better.
I'll tell you this though, Justin. I was like you, as like a lot of guys. It's the only place you can go to get a year off. But I remember that when we were doing our readiness statements, and we were in this small cold band room, and we were, it was like 40 degrees in there, and it's freezing, and you had to do these readiness statements. What you'd done, how you feel about that, who you hurt, or whatever those things were that you wrote. One of the guys, big burly guy, gets up and he gets all broken up. I mean, guys don't really cry in prison, but RDAP's a little different. He breaks up. It's like the first time that it's really hit him what it all has happened, and he's verbalizing it. He can't get it out. So Kimbrick Jones stands up and literally stands right beside him and reads his readiness statement for him. And that day in that cold band room, I was thinking, wow, this is maybe a little bit different than what I thought it was. A little bit different. This isn't like the rest of the prison.
How about that?
This isn't like the rest of the prison. But that really opened my eyes, though, Justin.
It's the one thing the BOP definitely got right.
Yeah, but they even mess around with it. You know, they do have it right as a program. You know, some of the people that are in the program can kind of mess it up, and that's kind of there's some good people in the program.
You know where they're getting it wrong is they made it a drug program instead of just a reentry program. Just a reentry. It should be a reentry thing.
That's all it needs to be.
Everyone should have to go through it.
Yep.
Or should be able to go through it.
Everybody should have the opportunity to join the reentry program. I totally agree with that.
And get the benefits out of it.
Get the benefits out of it. I meant to ask you, though, as you were going into prison, what were your thoughts walking in? Because you'd been in county jail for 7 months. Were you, because there's a big difference between the county jail and prison. I mean, in prison's a lot better than county jail.
Well, in county jail, someone took food off of my tray and I had to fight.
Yeah, that's a totally different
thrown in the hole. I got messed up. Like four big dudes jumped on me.
Yeah, and there's some dangerous.
They don't fight fair in county jail. It's gangs. They throw you all in together.
Right.
Got through in the hole in county jail, and I was in the hole with crazy people. Like a dude that was stealing toothpaste and eating my toothpaste. Another dude was like crapping in his hand and smearing it in the vent.
There's nothing.
And I'd have to kick on the door and ask to be moved to another cell. Like I'm going to kill this guy.
Yeah, scary stuff.
Scary stuff, man. That's the worst part of it.
But rolling into prison.
Yeah, so I had enough insight from people that had come through the jail that I'd ask questions from. I had enough insight that I knew it was going to be a better place. Yeah. And that I knew that I didn't have anything to worry about. I knew it was going to suck because the next 12 years of my life was 10, was going to be pretty rough. But I knew that, look, the clock is already ticking and it's going to be better. The food's better. The living environment's better. Federal prisons have AC. It's okay, man. You're going to be okay. You're not going to a maximum security penitentiary where you have to have a knife.
We didn't have AC at Leavenworth.
Yeah, I heard. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. That sucked.
But that's, that
really sucked.
But you know what? You get used to that too.
Would you have fans? They give you fans?
Oh, yeah, we had fans. You could buy fans from the commissary. But my point on that is that regardless, you can adapt to anything. And there were some very hot nights, but maybe there wasn't as many hot nights as I thought there was going to be. Maybe there was only 8 to 10 hot nights that were so uncomfortable, but the rest of them, we figured it out.
You know what? We can, like you said, we can adapt to anything. We think even the things we think we aren't capable of, we are. Yeah. And when you're forced, when you have no other option, it's easier. Yeah. It's easier because you don't have an option. What are you going to do about it? Yeah. I got to take a crap in front of 20 people in county jail. There's no privacy. You say when you got to take a crap, you got to sit on a toilet and other people, like, they're not like purposely staring at you unless they're nuts, which they are nuts. That too. Yeah. But you just got to get comfortable. Like if you're pee shy, you won't be by the time you get out of prison.
By the time you get out.
Or county. Yeah. So you know what? I knew what I was going into, but they put us in a dog catcher. And they took 3 of us, I believe. They drove us to Coleman. And so for what people don't know what a dog catcher is, it's like a truck that has like a divider down the middle. They like shackle your legs and your arms and everything. And then they put you you sit in this really uncomfortable steel, like all bunched up. I'm a tall guy. So it's like, I'm all bunched up. And about an hour and a half later, we got there. They took us into R&D. I sat in a tank for like 8 hours, waited to get processed. They by after dinner, it was already dark. Everyone was locked down in the dorms. They handed us a bedroll and told us what dorm to go to. And you get your bedroll and you walk to your dorm. And when you get there, people pull up on you. They ask you where you came from. They ask you for your paperwork. They ask you, they're going to be living with you. Yeah. Yeah. They let you know what to do, what not to do. They ask you if you've ever been to prison. you know what? Like, there's a good group of guys, and they look out. Like, they bring you shoes, they bring you some shower slides, they bring you some stuff, like everything, all your essentials, so you can go to commissary.
And I think that's unbelievable, because that's exactly the opposite of what I thought before I entered prison. I thought, you see these things on TV, they're going to rape you, they're going to beat you up, they're going to do, that kind of stuff could happen in the county jail if you stay there long enough. But the prison, you're entering the world where everybody's living, it's their life. And there are guys that just immediately come help you. They actually give you stuff to get to the next thing. Yeah, you're not going to be able to go to commissary for 5 days. So here's your shower shoes. Here's this. Here's that. And
I had people bring me things and tell me you don't have to get it back.
Yeah,
they said I do not expect anything back. You got a long sentence ahead of you. If you want to do something, if you want to get me something back, you can. You don't have to.
Yeah, and what's weird, Justin, is after you've been there a while, you are then one of the people that's helping the new guy that's coming in, which is that's when it's really a weird dynamic.
Pay it forward.
Yep.
Yeah, I felt an obligation to pay it forward. I wanted to. There's a lot of good people in prison.
Yeah. And
everybody makes mistakes. Some worse than others. My mistake was pretty stupid, man. What I did was really dumb. For such a smart guy, I really was really stupid.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that you can look at on that is you'd had some really good success with the things you've been doing since you were 13 years old. You also looked at this as an opportunity to make a lot of money at a very early age. And a lot of money at an early age is very, it looks good and it feels good. And, that's how things can, like you said, you can head down a wrong path. It doesn't make you a bad person, but, after you've gone through what you've gone through, I think it's interesting what you're doing now, because you're putting those pieces back in. But I want to go back to when you're getting in that time period, you get 6 months to the door. What are you thinking? Are you starting to think, how am I putting myself together to get out? Because re-entry is tough.
I didn't know I was 6 months to the door.
You didn't know?
No, I didn't know. First Step Act put me out. I had no clue. So I got a big surprise. I got a huge surprise. Like, thank you, Trump administration. Thank you, Jared Kushner.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kim Kardashian. Thank you, everyone who went out there and actually recognized there was a problem that needed fixed and put your best foot forward to doing something about it. Thank you. We may have not gotten everything out of it that the law and states we should have, but it made a big impact. And it gave a lot of good people, an opportunity, and it gave them hope for a better tomorrow. So thank you. So about 9 months or a year into my sentence, the DEA toxicology report came back on the substance I actually had. And that was my first big surprise in prison. So they told me that the substance I had was less than half as potent as the substance I had been charged with.
Okay.
And as a result, they couldn't, like, because they said that my drug was the marijuana equivalency table was messed up. It needs changed. That's something I think it came about in the Reagan administration, like, change that shit, because it's terrible.
It's messed up.
Not right. But the math doesn't make sense.
Right.
But they said 1 gram of what I had was equivalent to 500 grams of marijuana. All right. How do you come? So anyhow, they came back, the DEA toxicology report sent to the courts and to my judge to my lawyer and let them know that, and to the BOP, let them know that basically, or it went to the judge, I guess, and the judge ruled on it. But basically, because it wasn't as potent as they thought it was, they couldn't base it on 1 to 500.
Okay.
So they reduced it to 1 to 250.
Okay.
Now, when they reduced it to 1 to 250, I thought, well, that's half, so I should get half the time, right?
Right. That's what I was thinking.
Nah. The difference between 1 to 250 and 1 to 500 was a little over 3 years. I think it was 3 years and 6 months.
Okay. It's still 3 years.
So it's still nice. It was still a very, I didn't know it was coming. So I'm like,
I bet. Yeah. You just gained 3 years.
Yeah. And then RDAP actually got me another year.
Right. So it's 4.
Yeah. So, and then time served, I already had counting towards my sentence. And then a year of halfway house and home confinement And then the First Step Act with earned good time credits, and I'm out the door.
And so how long did you have then? How long were you in?
I did just shy of 6 years.
Wow. Okay.
So expecting to do 10 years,
Yeah.
I was very, very, very I'm happy with that outcome.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But so I read a book. I stumbled upon a book. Most of what I read was nonfiction. Every now and then I have to read a fiction book just to keep things interesting. But I read a lot of fiction,
and I read a lot of fiction in prison just because.
Who do you like? Grisham, Connolly?
Yeah. I also like Greg Iles. If you ever read Greg Iles,
I haven't read any Iles.
He's awesome.
What kind of fiction writer is he?
Gigantic. Well, he's an attorney, just kind of like the Grisham deal, but he writes about Nacogdoches, Mississippi, which is where he grew up, and it's just he writes 800-page books. But I had everybody reading Greg Iles because it's
ISLES.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to check him out. You said it's Christian based?
No.
Oh,
it's not.
okay.
He's an attorney and author, and it's good stuff. Good stuff.
I'll have to check him out. 800-page books, that's a big commitment in the free world.
It is, but you can get through it because it's that good.
I'll have to definitely check it out. I need to check your book out as well.
Please do, yeah.
I will. So I stumbled on this book by David Rose. David Rose is president of the New York Angels Association, or New York Angels Group, whatever they call themselves. It's basically a syndicate of angels where they do the due diligence so that as individual angel investors, you don't have to do all that and make risky bets. Mm-hmm. You just put your money in through a syndicate. All the due diligence is handled by a team or a panel that's appointed, and you make pretty smart bets. You know what I mean? So they place their money, they allocate their fund based on where they believe it's going to produce a return. And so anyhow, he wrote a book called The Startup Checklist, and it's like the 25 steps you must take to start a scalable high growth business.
And check that out. What's it called?
It's called The Startup Checklist by David Rose. And he covers everything, all the simple stuff that you don't learn in business school. Like you learn the basics, like how to set up, you learn all that in business school, but he breaks it down in a way where it's like, okay, this is why you need to go with a Delaware C Corp. This is why you need cap table management software. This is why you need to structure define and structure your different classes of stock. This is how you should treat equity and between co-founders. This is how you should do stock grants. This is the authority your bylaw should give the board at this stage of the business, at this stage of the business, at this stage of the business. You know, like
and
seed,
you're reading
Series A.
this, Justin, before you got out of prison?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So I read that probably right when I got to Big Sandy. So after I completed RDAP, I got a near home transfer.
Okay.
And I was the captain's orderly on the compound at RDAP. So I got the place I asked to go to.
That's awesome. That doesn't usually happen.
Yeah, it doesn't. They tried to designate me somewhere else. I asked for Big Sandy for a reason because you know what the reason is. So I asked for Big Candy for a reason, and they tried to send me to Morgantown, and I went straight to the captain's office. So, and they made it happen.
That's awesome.
So, but here's the thing. I attribute a large part of my success to RDAP and to having gone through this experience. And prison, although it's such a negative thing and it's such a bad thing that I did, it's opened so many doors for me in my life that I would have never been opened had I not went. And it gave me the confidence as a man to open doors for myself or to ask, because the worst that can happen is someone says no. Exactly. If you don't ask, the answer is always no.
Right.
So, and the worst that happens is you're just right where you are.
Exactly.
You know, nothing changes.
You didn't lose anything.
Right. Fear is false evidence appearing real.
And I love that acronym.
I love it too. Yep. So I read this book and I said, you know what? Like, of course I had a phone. Now I completed RDAP already. If I was really rationally thinking, if I was evaluating my thinking, I wouldn't have had a phone. So I will admit that I'm sorry, Dr. Prophet.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. But look, I had to do what I had to do
to get going, right?
I didn't get caught. So
which could have cost you a year, by the way, if that happened.
That would have cost me the year. Yeah. It would have cost me good time. It would have cost me a lot of things.
Right.
I knew the risk, but I also knew the reward. I calculated the risk and the reward, and I was very smart about how I used the phone. I wasn't dumb about it. but the time when most people in prison have phones, they're like talking to girls or, their maybe their children or their families, or they're like talking to like 5 different girls trying to get them to put money on their books or whatever. That nonsense. I wasn't trying. I was building a business. So I set up a Delaware C Corp. 9 months before I got released, I retained a law firm, a business law firm. I got cap table management software. I got my co-founder to recruit people in India and start getting people to work for equity. That's awesome. And start getting our beta built. I had our beta launched 6 months before my release date.
Wow.
And so I built a business, a scalable, high growth software business that now has 18,000 users from the confines of federal prison.
Wow, what a story! So when you walk out of there, Justin, you're walking right into that, because I know that there's some things in probation. I know part of my supervision is that I can't start a business or my own business until I get off, supervised release. But you can actually, I think you can ask for that and have it altered to your.
You can ask for permission.
Yeah.
Probation's all about permission. Here's the deal with probation. Yeah, that was part of it. Like, you're not supposed to work for yourself, right? Because you need to answer to somebody. They want to have they want to have a supervisor. So you know what I did? I went to work in a warehouse.
Okay.
And I worked 10-hour shifts, 5 days a week. And then I came home and I worked another 5-6 hours on my business.
On your business. I love that.
And I slept a few hours a day.
Yeah.
And and I sacrificed the time with family and others. I made sacrifices.
Well, it's not easy. I mean, building a business is not an overnight success ever. It's always about, putting in what needs to be done, your plan, your structure, the consistency of being able to grow something. And what you did, I love what you just said. You did what they told you to do. You did a 10-hour warehouse job, and then you went and did your other job. You're working 2 jobs.
Yeah. I did. I burned a candle at both ends for about a year.
Yeah. That's cool.
So, and my probation, I was transparent with my probation officer as well. He knew that I had a business. He knew how I kept him updated with the growth. He always asked about it. He cared about it.
Yeah.
Brent Willoughby, he's a heck of a man. I hope that more people in the federal probation system are like him. I don't know what it's like for everyone, but that's a good man.
I actually had some good probation officers too. So yeah, I would agree with you on that. It's not all bad.
He really looked out for me.
Yeah.
He even made connections for me. He recommended, like, I would go to an event where there's high profile business people and judges and lawyers and athletes, like professional athletes and people that congregate at these events. And he got me in that circle. That's like awesome. He tried to facilitate my growth. And that right there, man, I can't say that all of them are like that.
No, but I think he probably saw a drive in you, and he wanted you to fulfill whatever that was. It was.
Well, my judge saw it too. So they transferred my judge. I was sentenced in Orlando. They transferred my case to Columbus, and I got Judge Algernon Marbley. And I was a little worried, and because but couldn't be worse than a 90-year-old judge that's tough on drugs. But I had 3 years of supervised release. After a year, after 12 months, I wrote my own motion. Mm-hmm. And made a case for why I needed to be terminated early. I have a business with an office in Mumbai, and I need to be able to travel to India internationally without any problems. Mm-hmm. And Judge Algernon, my probation officer, said, I'm not going to object. I'm going to support your motion. And the prosecutor's not going to object either. But it would be unprecedented. To get released in 12 months on a 3-year, it's probably not going to happen, man. Mm-hmm. Like, they want you to do 2/3. Mm-hmm. He said at least like 18, but if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So go ahead and submit your motion. So I wrote a motion, submitted everything. 3 days later, Judge Algernon Marbley rules in my favor.
Wow.
And terminates early termination of probation. And he thanked me he congratulated me on my business and my success and wished me the very best and said that he thought I was a prime example of the good that can come out of our correctional system.
Man, I love that. Justin, tell me about Contractor Plus. Because I know that's a big passion of yours.
So we started serving handyman. So it started back in the day. I wrote just.
That's what I love about it. You've taken all your experience and rolled it into a fantastic company that solves problems.
I built this little tool called Handyman Estimator. And it was internal. We didn't sell it or promote it or anything. It was just internal. It was web-based, so we had to use it on a tablet with a SIM card. Mm-hmm. But what it did was it eliminated double data entry, and it eliminated us having to take pictures off of an SD card, putting it in a computer and typing up a manual estimate in QuickBooks and attaching the photos and sending it to the investor and getting an approval. Mm-hmm. It streamlined that whole process. So I had built that internally, and I realized, like, hey, if we're having this problem, a lot of people are probably having this problem. Exactly. And then I realized at the time, there was no solutions on the market. Now there are. There's 30 different solutions competing for a $5 billion industry. And the industry is growing at about 20% annually. So it's on track to be a $25, $30 billion industry by 2030.
Wow.
So it's still a huge, even though there's, I would say 20 formidable competitors, it's so fragmented. I would say there's trust me, there's room for everyone, but all existing solutions are solving problems within the organizational unit. And that's just the field service management software market. That's not the construction software market, which is separate. That has a valuation of around 10 billion and is growing at like 8%. Now, if you combine those two together, we're looking at a $50 billion market opportunity in the next 10 years. So, and then you've also got prop tech, like you've got your Buildium and Yardi and Appfolio, people servicing property managers. Now, we're not competing with those guys, but what we are doing is we're bridging the gap between, on one end of the market, your field service guys, your landscapers, your handyman companies, your HVAC, plumbers, electricians, roofers, everybody. They need software to run their business and to do dispatching and to do billing and invoicing and estimating and all of that. On the other end of the market, you've got your builders and your GCs and your property managers and your master developers. They need compliance solutions. They need a way to streamline onboarding and compliance and manage their subcontractor relationships without having to pick up a phone or manually editing a Gantt chart. Or every time something changes, like for example, your framing guys can't get started until your foundation guys are done.
Right.
And if your foundation guys are a week late due to bad weather or whatever, then everything else, everyone else, all the other contingent phases of that project get delayed, and you might have to call 50 different people or email 50 different people with that update. There's no reason businesses should have to go through all of that. All of those processes can be streamlined. So we're building subcontractor management and compliance. We automate everything from collecting the W-9, insurance, licensing, having them sign an independent contractor, a subcontractor agreement, non-disclosure and non-compete. We can even automate background checks if you want to do background checks on and all of that can be stored in a compliance locker in one place. And we give this solution away to the master developers and the big commercial GCs for free.
Wow.
And the reason is because our bread and butter is the SMB contractors, the field service guys that have less than 5 employees.
Right. They need all that software to keep everything going. Yeah.
So the building that I live in, it's what is it, like 10 stories, 11 stories, I don't know, whatever. So the building I live in, it was managed by one big development company. They worked with an architect and engineering firm, and they put it all together, but then they subbed it all out. The GC just pulled the permits, and they sub out everything to hundreds of contractors. Well, those hundreds of contractors all use CRMs. They all use something to run their business, or if they don't, they probably should. Not probably, they definitely should. Right. So we're helping contractors systemize to unite their teams, impress their clients, and grow their business. And we're facilitating that relationship between the master developers and the GCs and the people at this end of the market with the SMB contractors and the artisans that are actually swinging the hammers and doing the work.
I love it.
So we're addressing things at the network level, instead of just solving problems inside the organizational unit.
Awesome. How do you get Contractor Plus? How do you get a hold of you guys?
Man, so you can pick up your phone, you can go to the App Store, and you can type in Contractor. It's the little red icon. It says Contractor with the plus sign, just like the neon sign behind me. It comes up number one. You can go to contractorplus.app. It's contractor, singular, plus.app. And we're in both the app stores. We are mobile first. So that means when you're out and about, you can run your business from your phone.
That's huge.
Yeah, if you have a dispatcher or you have people in the office doing work, our web panel has like reporting and a lot more functionality, but we're mobile first in the sense that we care about usability and we want to make your life easier.
So it's basically turnkey and convenient. I think what you are doing is your story. I tell you, man, it is fascinating. You should write multiple books. You got different layers of it.
I definitely plan on it. For a long time, I felt like I needed to wait until my business had like a $100 million valuation or $1 billion. Yeah. If we reach unicorn status, then people are going to want to read my book.
Absolutely.
Especially if we do it without VC.
Exactly. You did it your way.
What's your opinion on that, by the way?
What's that?
People say it's impossible to reach unicorn status without working with late stage venture capital firms. And I disagree. What's your opinion?
I don't believe that. I think that especially if you have the imagination and the know-how to continue to duplicate and grow, the thing that you get in with the venture capitalists is that they can really change the culture of your company because they want different things than you do, and those things can be the things that actually devalue what you're doing, and that they scare me. It's very intoxicating to have them chase you because they have a lot of money, and it looks like it's a quick deal, but there's so much that attaches to it that I think is scary. I meant to ask you, Justin, because I kind of slid past it. All these things that you've gone through, your whole life journey, what do you think's your biggest takeaway out there to give to the listeners?
Well, if you can learn, so from my experience, if you can learn things without having to go through trials and tribulations, if you can learn from other people's mistakes, like my mistake, do it. If you're listening to this right now and you're selling drugs or you're doing something that's gray area, whether it's something as simple as like stamping a notary seal that doesn't belong to you or whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. If you know right here, if you know that it's wrong, don't do it. Stop, walk away, discipline yourself to do the right thing. Because when you do the right thing, the right outcome will ensue. By doing the right thing. Now it's never on our timeline. It's never when I want it. It's never immediate. It's never right. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's out of my control. But all I can control is me. Mm-hmm. I can't control anyone else around me. I can't control my employees. I can't control people in my friends. I can't control my family. I can't control my sexual partners. I can't control any of that, or romantic partners, I should say. But I can't control anyone else but myself.
Right. So
know that the only person and the only thing you have control over in life is you and your actions. And do the best. That's the card you were dealt. Do the best you can to play those cards the best you possibly can. And don't learn things the hard way, man. Because if you're out there doing something stupid, if you're selling drugs, if you're doing, look, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Mm-hmm. Your life is you don't have to go through that. You can skip all of that. Mm-hmm. And you can live a successful lifestyle without having to go through those trials and tribulations. So that would be,
I love it. It's good stuff. We'll end it there because that's a great, you can live by that. And if you do live by that, we'd have a much nicer place to live in. Speaking of a book, I wrote one, Nightmare Success, Loyalty, Betrayal, Life Behind Bars, Adapting, Finally Breaking Free. Go out and get it. I'm on in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, wherever you want to order your books. I love all the stuff, comments, likes on social media. Hey, if you got time, leave a review on Apple. That helps the show grow. It feeds their algorithm. I love that. It's easy to do. Just scroll down the page and it says write a review. I wanted to say a shout out to Edovo. I'm on the Edovo platform. It's in 200 prisons across the country now. And for those behind the wall, go to your discovery section and type in Nightmare Success In and Out. Glad to be a part of that. As I used to say back when I was writing my emails back on Core Links, stay strong, and I'll do the same. Nightmare Success In and Out. Thank you, Justin Smith.
It's my next book. Thanks for having me. It's been great.